Welcome to Inspired Caregiver with me, Michelle Magner. This is the podcast where people who are helping out their older family members come for information, tips, and inspiration on how to make their journey easier. Enjoy this episode of Inspired Caregiver. Okay, well, hello, Lisa. Welcome back.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad that we can have this conversation today for caregivers.
Me too. There's so many topics to cover, but I'm happy to contribute with some tips and tricks to make life a little easier for caregivers and those that they're caring for. So,
Would you mind just reintroducing yourself and what your background is?
not at all. Hi everyone. I'm Lisa Hamilton. I am a physical therapist. I've been a physical therapist for over 30 years. And I've practiced in a wide variety of settings, from hospitals to outpatient to home health. So I've had a lot of experience kind of seeing how people live and move around and interacting with caregivers who are caring for their loved ones, maybe in their own home or maybe in their loved one's home, or maybe it's even as a caregiver in a assisted living or facility. So I hope I can bring some of that knowledge to life to give you some practical tips to make life a little easier and safer. Because as a physical therapist, seeing people and the repercussions from falling and things like that are kind of my number one thing. So safety is always on my mind for both parties, caregivers and the person that's being cared for. So.
Well, I'm so excited about this because I think there are so many tools and tricks of the trade that people at family or family members at home just don't know about. So, just something simple as how to help someone get out of bed and or to get from a bed to a wheelchair. Just those little things I think are just so valuable. And so I'm excited to bring that to people. Yeah. So do you have like an overall, how do you want to go about this? Do you have just like some overall recommendations, or do you want to hit on specific goals?
I would like to talk about just some overall recommendations. I have kind of my top tips and tricks, and then maybe we can talk even by room or activity of what some things to think about. And then I want to finish up with talking a little more about technology and how to use technology to make everybody's life a little easier and more engaging, even if you think you hate technology. So
yeah. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so juicy. So much information. Yay!
Yeah. Okay.
So overall,
I have a few props here to show, but I'm going to show you my number one safety thing, and it looks like this. So for those of you who've never seen a gait belt, right? It's kind of it's a safety belt, I think of. This one's kind of fashionable because it's kind of a pretty blue. You can get them in different colors, and especially with COVID, it may be important to get a gait belt that's easy to clean. And so this one is kind of a webbing strap. They make ones that are vinyl, and those are just easy to wipe down with a disinfectant or a wipe or something like that. So I really like those, especially if you're using them with multiple people, or if multiple people are using them to assist a person. So I think a gait belt for me, is as a therapist and as a caregiver too, is one of the most important things, because it can be so helpful in so many ways. So namely, like getting in and out of a chair. You talked about out of bed and out of a chair, and as people get older, and if they are weaker, maybe they're less able and less safe or stable of getting up and getting moving. And I think as caregivers, our tendency is to want to like grab them under the armpit or something,
or by the hand,
or let them grab us. Yeah, or let them grab us around the neck. Like I've had people, let me just put my hand around your neck and you can help me. And safety for a caregiver is really important. So a gait belt is it's like the one tool that's good for everybody. So you would put a gait belt on somebody kind of around their waist, and it should be kind of snug because you want it to be kind of it's a safety belt, and so it should feel like it's doing something,
Hmm.
and not slide up and down. So, like for instance, if you're helping somebody to get up and out of a chair, instead of grabbing by their hand or by their arm or letting them grab around your neck, you can get a hand on the gait belt and just assist kind of from their center of gravity. So that's where, most of the weight's distributed. So when we can help somebody from their center of gravity to get their weight over their feet to stand up, it makes it so much easier for everybody because let's face it, as caregivers, it can be really hard on our bodies too,
Yeah.
helping people, do just everyday things. And for a patient or for your loved one, it's really nice to have that security where somebody's not, grabbing onto your limbs or your hand or things like that. To just have a kind of little extra hand around your waist. So I love gait belts. I think everybody should have one. There's lots of other uses for gait belts, which we can talk about, but it's good for getting up and down. It's good for getting out of bed, and if you have somebody who maybe is a little unsteady with walking, um, I put it on people while I'm walking beside them because, again, you want their limbs to be free to hang onto a cane or a walker, or maybe they're using their arms for balance. And so you want to be able to have a good hand maybe on the gait belt, or I should say a light hand on the gait belt in case
Hmm.
it's needed. Yeah,
So
so
does it
that's
matter
my
if
like.
you're reaching from above the strap or under the strap?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I would reach from under the strap, right? Because you're not pulling up on it. You want to kind of get your hand, underneath the strap if it's on somebody,
Hmm.
so you can have a good hold on it. And
Okay.
again, we're not trying to pull somebody. It's just for a guidance, right? It's just a safety strap for guidance. And it also then, as a caregiver, forces you to use your good body mechanics to help people, get out of bed or when you're walking and things like that. So,
I'd love to add that I think for people that are nonverbal, so maybe they are not responding to cues, verbal cues as well, a gait belt can be really helpful in starting the momentum of the action. So when you put the gait belt
yes.
around and then you have that gentle like lift from under the strap, then they're able to
Yeah.
say, oh, okay, I'm standing up now.
Right. Right. And now this isn't equipment related, but getting out of a chair or on and off the toilet is probably one of the biggest things I see people struggle with.
Mm,
And so, yeah, as a caregiver, if you can cue somebody, to really get their weight forward over their feet, and sometimes that little, lift through the gait belt can just unweight the hips enough off the surface to get momentum to bring them over their feet to come up to standing.
great.
Um, I have had some people come with some resistance to wearing a gait belt because
Hmm.
they tend to be, some of them tend to be bulky. So my advice is if you want to impress the person you're caregiving, ask their opinion, let them pick a color. Maybe it's just a black patent leather or vinyl, and that is a little looks a little nicer if you're
Yes.
fashion your gait belt. So
And you don't have to wear it all the time like you would a
yeah,
pants belt. It's just literally for the action that you're trying to accomplish. And then you just take it off.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yes.
All
And I
right.
keep them handy. I keep them handy, keep them nearby so when you need them. And it's a learning process for both parties to really understand and feel the benefit that it's helpful for
Great. So good.
everyone. Yeah. Yeah. So you and I talked last time just about safety things like moving rugs and making sure lighting is good.
Hmm.
Thinking about any tripping hazards or clutter, especially if you're using an assistive device. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about assistive devices, namely if you have a walker, especially the walkers that have four wheels on them and the handbrakes. So those can be great because they're easy to maneuver, but they also can be a little squirrely, I'll say. And so
Okay.
sometimes they can get away from people. And so a strategy I use, especially if it has a seat or a little basket under the seat, is I put stuff in it that has some weight to it. So maybe it's canned goods or a bag of rice or something like that. It just gives it a little more stability. It
Hmm.
also if somebody's using that, puts a little more load into the walker, and it can be kind of a workout to have to push this walker with a little bit of weight in it. Because sometimes, because they're so mobile, they're also a little unsafe, and again, squirrely is the best word I could describe for that. So think about adding a little bit of weight to a walker for kind of that double benefit of a little exercise plus a little more stability.
I literally would have never thought of that. Or have never thought of that as a caregiver. That's
It,
awesome.
it it's a good trick. It's a good trick.
Yeah.
So um, bathrooms tend to be the biggest concern, or one of the biggest concerns, because I mean, let's face it, you've got water and slippery surfaces.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have
Yep.
somebody you're caregiving for, it makes it really challenging. So that's where that vinyl gate belt can come in handy, because it
Okay.
can go in the shower.
Okay,
So,
good.
right. Yeah, so that's a good thing. So just some, equipment things to think about, and safety for the bathroom, making sure that any bath mats have grippy things on the bottom so they're not rug sliding around. Um, I'm a big fan of bath benches and bath chairs, especially if you have a bathtub that you need to kind of get your legs over.
Mm,
Another use of a gait belt is you can use it almost like an assist for a leg, looping it around a foot, and then your loved one can, lift their own leg with the assist of the gait belt. So
okay.
multi uses for that. And just anything, in a shower or bath area that can make it easier for both of you. Things like long handled reachers, or liquid soap, or towels that are close by so nobody has to reach too far or step with wet feet or something like that. So a lot of problem solving can go into just making the bathroom a whole lot better and safer experience. Because in my experience, as people get older, they get more fearful of the bathroom, because there's
Yeah,
so many things that can happen, and that can lead to maybe not showering for many days because of that fear. And so
right.
just kind of making it as safe and comfortable as possible can help encourage participation in that too.
So do we need a prescription from our doctors to get those bath benches or chairs? Do you know if Medicare pays for those types of things, or how does that
You know
work?
what, that's a really good question, Michelle, and it is really dependent on your insurance.
Okay.
There is some benefit through Medicare for some durable medical equipment, or DME as we call it. So
Okay.
it's really, it certainly doesn't hurt to get a prescription. Keep track of your receipts if you end up paying out of pocket for it, and then you can compile those from a tax purpose. Um, so, bath equipment tends to not be covered by Medicare in my experience. Things that are mobility devices like a walker, wheelchair, some of that. But there's rules and guidelines around that too. Like you can only get one every so many years, and things like that. So it's really important to check your insurance benefits.
Okay.
So yeah, so even for instance, that's a really good point. Like if you have Medicare pay for a walker, and then next year you needed a wheelchair, they may not pay for that wheelchair because you already got a device. I know it seems crazy,
Right.
but that's why I like to guide people to, if it's in your budget and you can afford to pay for some of the smaller equipment and just keep your receipts, that
Okay.
maybe save that insurance budget for something that would be more of an out of pocket burden.
And those are also types of things that may end up at a Goodwill, or there might be organizations in your community that facilitate getting equipment into the hands of people that need it at a discounted
Absolutely. I
cost.
mean,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And even you don't have to go to a medical supply. They tend to be more expensive there. Walmart, Walgreens, some of those, places, if you want something new, can have equipment. And you're absolutely right. We have in our town a lending closet.
Mm,
And basically there's equipment there that people don't need, and you can check it out and then you just return it when you're done.
awesome.
But Craigslist, looking through, any network that you have for aging services, they may be able to point people in the right direction to just borrow this equipment. So that's a really good point.
Great.
Excellent point. Yeah.
So
So
good.
make your bathroom safe for everybody. Um, Things like I'm a fan of polls. So poles are a piece of durable medical equipment, or here's a little hack for you. You can go to Home Depot and you can get a floor to ceiling pole that's like a tension pole, and they use
Okay.
them in the construction business all the time. Um, and those are really good because they can be mounted from the floor to the ceiling with tension, and they're strong enough so if somebody just needs a little extra hand to pull up on coming out of a chair or something, nearby, and they're a little more portable. That's a great hack that you can put in your house and not have to, permanently install something. So I
I'm,
like those in the shower too.
yeah. I'm picturing something like the rack I have in my shower with the little baskets on it, with but it's on a pole.
It's on a pole, right?
Yeah.
And actually where the top and the bottom, where it goes
Yes.
into the floor or the ceiling is a more like a plate. So it spreads the surface area out a little bit more to make it more stable
Okay.
and both surfaces. So look for those at Home Depot because that's a
Okay.
really less expensive way to get a pole that's helpful to come um, from sit to stand and some other things. So
And you
I,
can
I
use those
like
in
those quite
in
a lot.
other rooms of the house.
Absolutely. It's not
Yeah.
something that you would wanna, like, move it around, like, every day, but they're inexpensive enough that you could have many of them in
Hmm.
different places depending on what the need is, and then they're certainly a little more adjustable than mounting something, directly to your ceiling and your floor. So I'm a
Great.
big fan of those. Yeah. Gosh, technology. Should we talk about
Yeah. Let's
technology?
talk about technology.
Yeah. Yeah, so technology tends to be something that a lot of older people are really afraid of. They're afraid they're going to mess it up, is my experience. And
Hmm.
so I'm a big fan of any technology that can be voice activated.
Okay.
And there may be a little training. So, Alexa, I don't have Alexa in here, else she'd
Yeah, I
be
don't have one
talking to
either.
us. Right? So Alexa is a really great gadget because it can run the lights, it can run radio, it can turn your TV on. So there's a lot of things that can be helpful in that way in order to get rid of remote controls or, as a safety feature if somebody wants to, turn a light on or turn a TV on and they have to get up to do that and maybe they are not as safe doing that. Just a voice activated control can be really helpful.
Okay.
So I would encourage people to experiment with those. There's a little bit of learning curve, certainly, of how to talk to these electronic devices, but even things like a cell phone, for someone with low vision that can't see to dial the numbers, if you have a cell phone that has voice activated, like I'm not going to say her name because she'll start turning around. SIRI,
Yes.
to dial people, right, loved ones and things like that, or even in an emergency, they can be used.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's so good. I know my kids have had a lot of fun with their Alexas in the house with music and weather and facts. So it's not just for communication or ease of doing things. It can actually be pretty fun.
Right. Alexa will tell you jokes if you ask her, or she'll sing you songs or
Oh
things
my
like
God.
that. So it's kind of fun to play around with. And I mean, gosh, Michelle, let's face it, especially in COVID times, we're all a little lonely and craving
Yeah.
some connection. And is connecting with Alexa the same as connecting with in-person humans? Of course not. But it certainly can provide a source of entertainment,
Sure.
um, for somebody who maybe doesn't have as many options of things to do.
And
So.
can't they, and I don't know if you'll know the answer to this, but can't they, like your loved ones can connect to them so they could like drop in to talk to you, I think, through them
There are
as
some
well.
devices that do that. I think both people have to have that specific device.
Okay.
But there are some devices that you can call and it can be like a video call without having to go through Zoom and sending a link and some of that. So I do have friends that have those with their loved ones and they find them really helpful.
Well, that's
So
great.
yeah, that's an option too. I was doing a little research too this morning, and there's a device called a Grand Pad. You ever heard of that?
No.
Me neither. So it's like an iPad, but it's called a Grand Pad, and it has a little more limited function, but there's games on it. The it's a little larger um, screen. It's got a larger graphic, so was watching a video of somebody playing like tic-tac-toe or some sort of card game on it, and it
Mhm.
was really nice to be able to do that with not feeling like you're going to mess something up because there was limited ways to do that. But and
Right.
from what I understood with that is you could also do a video conference on something like that, and it was
Oh,
relatively
cool.
inexpensive. It was less than $100,
Okay.
which, I mean, it ends up being when you're taking care of somebody feeling like you need all this equipment. And so, anything that you can think of that you can buy and not in a medical supply that you might have around your house can be beneficial.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Something else I recommend too, because getting out of chairs can be difficult for people, is, and if you can't, afford one of those chairs that actually lifts you up, like a
Hmm.
recliner, a motorized recliner, just taking some like, quilts and blankets and things like that and padding up the seated surface to make it higher. Right,
Okay.
and that can be just enough so it's less cumbersome to come, from sit to stand. Many people have sofas that are, older and they're really low, and
Yeah.
they're hard to get out of, right? It's
Because
like
like your
coming down from
pockets
the
are
ground up to standing.
below
Yeah,
your knees or
yeah. So the higher up you can be with your hips, right,
okay.
the less you have to go to come to standing, and so that's really helpful too.
That's so good. I
Blanket,
would never, again, would have
blankets,
never
yeah.
thought of that.
Blankets. One of my other kind of hacks to make people feel better if they're doing a lot of sitting is a bath towel,
Okay.
right? You take that bath towel and you just put it kind of in the small of the back, right? And that helps people change the position of where they're sitting in the chair too. Because sometimes as people get older too, they tend to sit with like a little slumped and rounded, and that can put a lot of pressure on kind of the bony parts of their bottom, which if
Hmm.
you're sitting a lot, that can be a big problem, having some skin breakdown and pressure areas. And so by just taking a towel roll and putting behind, it shifts the weight off of the sit bones just a little bit. It also gives a little better posture and can feel good to have that support in the low back. So that's don't go out and buy a fancy lumbar roll. You can just take a bath towel, put some duct tape around it if you want to keep it rolled up, and just use it that way. So that's a really nice thing to consider as well.
I feel like I could use one of those at work. Now that you're saying that, I feel like I'm
Right?
not, my posture isn't as good as it could be.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yes. You don't have to, you can be any age to use a towel as the
Yeah.
lumbar support roll. There's no age limit on that one,
Yeah.
certainly. Yeah. Another technology piece that I'm liking is the Ring doorbell. And this isn't,
Okay.
I don't know, do you have a Ring doorbell, Michelle?
No, but I have that app on my phone next door. I don't know if you have that in your community, but it's where everybody's capturing naughty things on their Ring doorbells and posting it. Do
Right,
you know this person?
right.
That's all I know about.
Yeah, what I like about the Ring doorbell too is like if like say you have a loved one who's you're caregiving for, but there are times when you have to go out
Mhm.
or they're home alone for a period, right? And I think some of this is this idea that, do we have to answer the door every time somebody rings it? Some older people think they do,
Mhm.
just because somebody shows up, and that could put you at a risk for falling or something like that, especially if you're trying to get there quickly. But what I like about the Ring is you can talk to it, kind of like Alexa, right? If somebody rings the doorbell, you can say, "Who is it?" You could get a
Mm.
video view of who they are. You could give them instructions if it's to leave a package or that you're not available. And so there's a real safety feature in that as well. And to your point, it's a video camera. And so if anybody that's naughty coming to your door to take your Christmas wreath or your, flowers from the summer off
Mhm.
of your porch or a package that's been left, it can help capture that. And that's a nice safety feature a lot of
There have
times for
been some
people.
um, really hysterical videos too of delivery people like being super goofy and funny when they're dropping packages off.
Right, right. You can
These
use them to prank probably your friends and family too, right? By talking to them when they come to the door or commenting on their outfit or something like that. And it's a little unnerving at first, and then you can appreciate a little bit of the humor in that.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So safety first, and again, making sure that the environment is compatible for everyone's safety, right? You and I talked last time about pets, right? Pets are a big
Yes,
safety thing, right? I love pets and I love my pets, and they also get underfoot and in the way and can be a hazard. So, just thinking about all the things in somebody's household without having to change everything, just to make life a little bit easier, for both parties.
I think that's great. I think this has been
Yeah.
so valuable. I think there you brought up some things that I had never thought of as a caregiver or even in the business. So I think that
Well, that's
people will
that's why we're having these conversations. I want to thank you for, inviting me to do this and for just allowing, this information to get out there to make people's lives a little easier. I mean, let's face it, caregiving is tough work,
it is.
both physically and emotionally, and it's hard on everyone. And so if we can make things just a little bit easier, why not?
One video at a time.
One video at a time. You got
Well,
it.
I look forward to having you back.
I look forward to coming back. It's always a pleasure to chat with you and share any tips and tricks that I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.